Buenas tardes y boa tarde. So this is basically greetings to the Hindu community from Latin America in Spanish and Portuguese. So it's a pleasure to be here and to see that there is a great opportunity to connect the Hindu diaspora, which has been extremely successful in Bharat and the Anglo-Saxon geographies in the world to the rest of the world. And Latin America is one region which the Hindus really have not migrated to and have not engaged with as much. So how many of you have businesses in Latin America today? Wonderful. So one among two people. Which country, sir? No, in Latin America.
Brazil and many countries we export agriculture.
Oh, wonderful. And yourself?
Well, I do a lot of work in Brazil and Colombia and Ecuador and Costa Rica and El Salvador.
But mostly exporting from India, or?
Doing management consulting.
Awesome, very good. So Latin America is still undiscovered, as you can see in a large hall of so many enterprising entrepreneurs. We have only 2 of them doing business with Latin America. Let's see what are the business opportunities we have for Hindus in Latin America. So why should Hindus look at Latin America? There are 3 reasons. One is resources, huge amount of land, lot of water. Copper is concentrated in the world in a few countries. You have, Peru and Chile, which concentrate about 40% of the world's copper. Iron ore, bauxite, wood and cellulose. I saw the CMD of Century Plywood was here. Markets, 600 million people. It's about a $5 trillion economy. It's probably slightly bigger than even Southeast Asia. It's an economy where there is very little trade. Today, the India-Latin America trade is somewhere around $50 billion. That's it. China, on the other hand, is doing somewhere around $250 billion. And it's actually planning to do about $500 billion. Very important culture, diversity of races. There has been an extremely high rate of intermarriage, and the Hindu image in Latin America is neutral. So there is an opportunity for a new resurgent India to create the image of modern Hinduism in Latin America without any of the usual suspects playing spoilsport. Next one, please. Yeah, which are these big markets? You find Brazil, Mexico are some of the bigger markets. They're relatively more economically stable. You find that you have the politically uncertain Venezuela, which is also a very big market. Eventually, it will, stabilize with a political change. Several mid-sized markets and very small markets. So there are about 17 countries in Latin America with which Hindus can do business. So which themes have had traction? From India to Latin America, 3 large categories have done very well. One is the automotive success story. There are lots and lots of automotive companies from India which have set up some kind of a presence in Latin America. Motherson Sumi is a good example. You have Bajaj Auto. Today, about 25% of all the motorcycle exports to the world goes to Latin America. They have a 30% market share in Colombia. They have a significant share in Mexico. And they have a 40% share in Guatemala. And to give you some numbers, this is about $1 billion export, 25%, about $250 to $300 million, Bajaj exports today to Latin America. Then you have Marco Polo, which is a Brazilian company in joint venture with Tata Group, which has set up a factory in India for producing buses. Many of you would have seen a lot of Marco Polo buses. This is the largest operation outside of Brazil and extremely profitable. And with Brazil going through crisis, most of the companies are doing badly. and it's the Indian operation of Marco Polo that's really saving them. So that's a great opportunity. Of course, Nemak and Metalsa are Mexican companies that have set up in India. So what is the driver of the success of the automotive industry? Similarity of income. The models which are being produced in Brazil and in India are very similar. For instance, Volkswagen has an advertisement in Brazil with elephants because it's the same advertisement they're using in India as well. Volkswagen UP has been launched in Brazil and in India. Nissan is launching the same vehicles, Hyundai is launching the same vehicles, etc. So there is a lot of opportunity for auto components to share, tools, technologies, work together to compete with multinational companies, to get into an OEM at an earlier stage. There are lots and lots of opportunities around auto components, which is going on. Of course, large domestic market. Pharma and chemicals is another spectacular sector which has done very well in this corridor. Indian generics are behind the health sector cost reduction in Latin America. So more than $1 billion, almost $1 billion are getting exported to Latin America from India of generics in Brazil. One of the reasons the Jai Group got set up was I used to be working for a very large multinational consulting company, and they had clients in India. When they came to Brazil, they couldn't take them on because of conflict of interest. Then when we discovered that, you looked at globalization is really a phenomenon which has worked for the rich countries because they are the real global ones. So these consultants serve them in multiple markets. While an Indian company is very attractive within the Indian market and a Brazilian company is very attractive within the Brazilian market, the moment they go to the other market and there is a conflict of interest with their main clients who are the incumbents, global incumbents, they don't want to take them on. So we set up the Jai Group to start working with emerging market multinationals, and we today also work with mid-tier multinational companies from the United States as well to get into Latin America. So Torrent Pharma was one of the clients of a very large consulting company, and they couldn't be taken on and served in Brazil. We helped them in Latin America, and they do somewhere about $100 million of business today in Latin America, and about 10% of their entire generics business comes from Brazil. United Phosphorus, agrochemicals, somebody talked about agrochemicals, is a spectacular success story. They are investing $1 billion in Brazil and Argentina. Brazil is the largest agrochemical market in the world today because Brazil is a major agricultural exporter. So United Phosphorus is a great success story. 36% of their global profits come from Brazil and Argentina. They are published companies, they are basically publicly listed companies. You can go and look at them. They're doing phenomenally well. So all their competitors such as Rallis and Coromandel Fertilizers, all of them are selling into Brazil. Of course, Mexichem is a PVC manufacturer, which is set up in Mexican company, which is set up in India as well. The third, of course, is the usual suspect, which is what most people associate Latin America with, which is the metals and minerals and commodity. 20% of Indian crude today gets imported from Latin America. Gerdau, which is one of our clients, we helped them set up a steel plant in India, in Tadipatri. They basically bought Kalyani Steel's subsidiary, and they're running a successful steel operation. They used to be the 5th largest company in the world. We'll have to look after the crisis. Of course, Mittal has a significant presence in Latin America, in Mexico, and also in Brazil, because they bought Arcelor, and Arcelor has a big presence in Brazil. So these are some of the opportunities, but there are many others which have not been mentioned, but I'll give you a quick example. In about 2 months ago, there was a company called Perto, which is a Brazilian ATM manufacturer, which set up an operation in Rajasthan in Jaipur. So because of Professor Vaidyanathan's work, they must be doing roaring business today. So essentially, if you look at Brazil, because of the high inflation history, all the transactions had to be done electronically very quickly because otherwise money would lose value. So the level of digital banking and penetration of information technology in Brazil among banking is much higher even than the richer countries. So if you look at the per capita ATM penetration in Brazil is one among the highest in the world. And if you, for instance, look at that as a general theme, urbanization is a big complementarity. between Latin America and India. Latin America has a relatively low per capita GDP, but 80% urbanization. In addition to that, you have complementary values of many kinds, family businesses, right? Commodity impact is a big complement. If India suffers at that time, Brazil does well because it's a commodity exporter. So there are 4 key drivers. As the trade policies of the United States become more restrictive, I think there is an opportunity that some of these free trade treaties between Latin America and Asia will, take off. Of course, left of center regimes are becoming more and more right of center newer liberal regimes. So key hints to the journey. I think, it's not Africa or Europe. Most Indian companies have reference points of the rich world and the poor world. When they go to Africa, they behave one way. When they go to Europe, they even pay very high premiums to acquire, expensive assets. While they go to Africa, they don't want to invest and they want to just monetize what they have in terms of their assets, in terms of their, knowledge and products. State is a major actor, and so it's an economy which, like India, also wants to create its own global multinationals, so it's important to partner locally within Latin America. Indian cultural ethos have not yet been tapped. There are lots of opportunities. We can talk more during the question and answer sessions. Cosmetics, Brazil is the 3rd largest cosmetics market in the world, for instance. Ayurveda is very highly appreciated, but there is not a single Ayurvedic cosmetics brand that has been created by Indian companies there. So we are here to answer questions. There are lots of opportunities in Latin America, and Indian and Hindu CEOs should make use of our connections and our knowledge of the region to do business there. Thank you.